Hello, my name is Jim Collins. I'm the owner of Collins Entertainment. Welcome to the Connecticut Wedding Channel, Episode 2. Every week, we will speak with Connecticut vendors who will discuss their services and offer tips for couples who are overwhelmed about the process of hiring their vendors. Today, I'm talking with Sal Fiore. Sal has been an officiant justice of the peace for over 30 years and is very passionate about creating your one-of-a-kind event. Sal believes that the presentation of the ceremony has to be given with the best voice, enthusiasm, and warmth so that everyone attending will be talking about it all night and even beyond. He loves being involved with this special occasion and does his best to make every ceremony one that will be based on a couple style, personality, values, and their traditions. Sal, thanks so much for being on the show.
Sure thing, Jim. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. So Sal, why don't we first talk about that moment you decided to provide JP services and tell us how your style has changed over the years.
Okay. Well, I started around 1980 and it's been a while, but I've learned that over the years, it's fallen into a passion. Like the last maybe 10 to 15 years is totally a different thing on just doing ceremonies, reading words and such. So now I just try to meet with couples, whether it's here in my home, or via the social media route, via FaceTime, Skype, and it's become something that I've just fallen in love with. And I put a lot of effort into it, and I always like to try to make sure that the couple is doing what they want to do for their special day, whether it's short and sweet, or if I can add anything that's personal to them, that makes their ceremony, their ceremony. That's what I try to provide.
And you do that wonderfully. I mean, the events that I've worked with you as a DJ and just seeing how you bring that personalized approach to and telling the story for couples, I think it's amazing. And it's memorable. And the people that are there, their guests, their family members appreciate that.
Well, I totally agree, Jim, because everybody is different. But, like I say, you can do something short and sweet, but if you want to give it that personal flavor, that's what I try to bring out with couples. Now, when I meet with couples or talk with them on FaceTime or Skype, they may not know what they want to do. So rather than just spending like 20, 25 years ago, I would say, all right, I'll be there. Here's my ceremony and I'm out of there in 5 minutes. I can't do that anymore. That's what I try to do now is I'll spend a good 2 hours with them doing this on the computer or right here in my home just to make sure that they're getting what they want to get out of their ceremony. And it's a blast. And like I've gotten a lot of friends and made a lot of relationships out of it. And I always just try to say there's a lot more than just doing a ceremony. It's how you portray it, how that couple feels about it. Even yesterday was I had a ceremony and it was just we had a very special intimate moment there where we did a little thing that was something I never really did before, and it was quite intimate. It was very personal, but they wanted to do it. And again, it involved a very important family member that wasn't no longer with us, but it was quite well. It was done quite well though, with a little help from like a gentleman like yourself that would help, provide a little ambiance with music or with your personality. So.
Right, and the thing that I've noticed too, when you arrive at events, you're a gentleman. You're a gentleman to those vendors that you work with. You're a gentleman to the guests that are there. So people know who you are before the ceremony starts. You go around asking how people are doing, when they're sitting down, waiting, just little things like that, just to bring that personality to it, make people feel comfortable. And I think it's important to have a good match for couples when they're working with any vendor, that they have that connection. They feel comfortable with that person, that they're going to take care of them on their day and help do that. So it sounds like there's a lot with what you're mentioning, the way you prepare your ceremonies for couples, because it's so personalized, that you do take a great amount of time in doing some prep work for that. How much time do you spend typically preparing for a ceremony for a couple?
Well, everyone's different. Like,
Yep.
like right now, right before I got connected with you, I had a couple. I like to do personal. I always suggest the couples do personal vows, and I always say if you want to send them over to me, I'll go over read them, but I'll try to say, well, this is a nice thing. This is what I think sometimes may work within your ceremony. Then I have a thing that well, you talk about the personal aspect, and again, rather than just sitting in your car till a minute before you do your ceremony,
Yeah.
well, I try to get out there, like you were saying, and see the vendors and just say, hey, look at, I always say to photographers, you can go wherever you want to go. You can go in my ear if you wanted to, just to make sure, you get something that's memorable for the couple.
Right.
And then there's this personal, I call it a brief synopsis on if you were getting married. I always like to try to find out how a couple first connects and have managed to bring us all together to this location for their memorable event. And I had a couple that really wasn't going to do it, but I sent them a few examples of what couples have done in the past. And it kind of gave her a little idea. And that's one thing. Another thing that I was working on this morning. So to put a number on the amount of time, everybody's is specific.
Yes.
But I'll end up going back and forth with couples via email, via phone, doing a checklist like the month of the event to make sure that they've done certain things, or we've gotten the ceremony to the point where they give me the okay to print it out like as the final draft. So, I mean, I could spend a good couple hours sometimes. Sometimes I'll be sitting on my couch over here. My wife is maybe thinking that I'm, playing a game on a computer. I'm working,
Yep. Yeah,
I'm
I understand that one.
I'm sure you have to do the same thing, but
Yes.
but again, it's to get a good feel after you're done with the ceremony, and to get the little, it was a beautiful ceremony type of thing from a guest or parent or the couple especially. That's all I try to, that's what I try to attain, is that couple is happy and that I've done my job and I've gone the extra mile, and it's more than just showing up, reading a ceremony.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And it's all about more than showing up and just pressing play. Like a lot of couples think that when they hire a DJ, that's what will happen. And if you're hiring a DJ, yes, that may be the case. If you're hiring a master of ceremonies, someone that's going to take responsibility for the way everything flows and the success of the day, then it's a lot of prep work beforehand, and spending like 40 hours of prep time is just an example before actually approaching the day of the event.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work that goes into that, and every couple is different and how much time is used for that. So it sounds like then couples, from what you were saying, when you present the idea of personalizing their story, they might not get it right away, but then you share examples of that or prompt some questions, and then they can understand what you're getting at exactly, how it's telling their story.
Yeah. And
setting it up properly.
Again, when I meet, it's like, all right, I have an agenda, but I just say, all right, we got to get to know each other, and I'll tell them how are we going to get to the altar, so to speak, and I'll cover the whole detail. And again, I'm not a wedding planner,
right?
But to me, sometimes you have to do that type of stuff. But then we'll get into, I try to concentrate on the ceremony, what they want to do. Do they want short and sweet? But even if they want short and sweet, everybody's idea of that is different. So that's where I try to get into making suggestions. Like maybe you can have somebody sing a song. And I've had that in a certain part of the ceremony. Yesterday, we had this little tribute that I was talking about. It was to her dad that recently passed, and we did the DJ played a little clip from a song. I think it was called "You Should Be Here" by Cole Swindell. it was just a little bit. It was a little touching, but
Sure.
sometimes couples want to do that. But then there's other things that you could do, like a passage, or if you want to recognize or acknowledge mothers or parents with the giving of a rose, then some couples will do the moment of silence. And I do have to say, sometimes that can be a little challenging, but sometimes couples definitely want to do it. It all depends.
Yeah, and the thing is with it, because presenting these ideas and knowing your couples ahead of time and being able to know and understand what would work for them, because you could suggest these ideas to one couple, and if that's not the mood they want to create, it won't work.
Right.
It has to be right.
Yep.
So knowing them and getting to know them ahead of time is so important for that. And talking about just the personalization and creating a love story. A love story is something also that many MCs do. And it's not as popular in the Northeast here with MCs doing this. But a love story is basically the same idea as a presentation of a couple, maybe the start of their relationship, how they met, going all the way up to the day of the wedding. And I know you have to communicate as an MC and be very careful about that, because I've done love stories before. And if you have a JP that also is doing something similar to that, that's why communication ahead of time before the event is so important, because you want to make sure that you're not being redundant in telling their story. And if you're sharing a piece of their story as their JP, I'm telling another story when it comes time for the reception.
That's a good point, Jim.
10 minutes to add to it.
That's a good point. And like, it's just like working with any other vendor. As long as you're, like, again, I always talk to DJs, and that's how we met, I think. And of course, like the photographer, the videographer, and I always have to do that just to make sure that we're all comfortable and we're all on the same page, and and that's the way it should be. So now that you brought that up, that's gotten me thinking a little bit too about our communication with me working with DJs.
Yeah, you do an excellent job of that ahead of time. So an example of that is similar to just thinking about photographer, videographer, as you mentioned, just connecting with everybody ahead of time, just to make sure that thinking about the whole event and the scope of the event, and to just get out of that, I'm the DJ for the event, and just to communicate with everybody to make a successful event. And you do a great job at that. There's plenty of professionals I work with that do a great job with that. And that way it's just setting it up for smooth flow for the evening, for their celebration. So when did you start doing that personalization? How long ago was that? When you started?
I would say that like within the last 10 to 12, I'd say like 12 years ago. Okay. And basically when I used to have couples come over here and just kind of get a little bit more of a feel for, all right, I got to give something more than just reading a ceremony. Yeah. I still work hard at trying to make it a presentation where everybody hears it, and I'm just not reading a script. Yes. You got to feel it out there, and that's what I try to convey. But I would say, like the last 12 years, and then I started doing like the ceremonies within a ceremony, which encompasses a lot of things, like sand ceremony, candle ceremony. I have a brand new one that I even created, which is called the Empty Box and Love Letter, which the couple did yesterday. Yeah. And then there's the box wine and love letter. There's blessing stones. There's tying the knot. So those are all little pieces that I've added, like within the last, I'd say like the last 12 years. And I still add to that. And like sometimes you'll get some very creative people that you just hit it off with. Yeah. That you can work and do something different. And I just add it to my arsenal now. And and it just adds, if couples want to do that type of stuff, it just adds to, what you could do.
Right. And it's so important to have a professional such as yourself, as you think about these ceremonies that you've heard about just through word of mouth, where they'll have a JP there and just things happening and the proper etiquette, things along those lines. So let's say the bride is during the processional is walking down the aisle, and no one's asked to rise for the bride. I've seen that happen.
Oh yeah.
I've seen that happen.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing. And just understanding how to take care of things, telling people when to sit down afterwards, so people aren't standing through the whole ceremony.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Just little things like that. Pronunciations, knowing the couple's names, phonetic pronunciations, and getting those properly before and going over those. So just all these little things behind the scenes that just through experience, you're able to understand how to do and execute properly.
Well, now that you mention that, it's very, very important. Those are the little things that sometimes you can't really sell, or if you try to meet with or kind of give the couple the information, it's just some of the things that you take for granted, but it's essential. It's just like a personal thing, like presenting the rings. Okay. Now this could be, I always say to couples, you can have your best man hand off both rings. Not a problem. Commonly done. I said, sometimes I can hand them over, but you could have best man. You could have a maid of honor. I could call somebody out of the crowd, and I've done it many, many times just for that part of the presentation. And it just adds a little personal feel. May not seem like anything big. They're going to remember it.
Sure.
The couple that's getting married is going to remember that too. Like,
of course,
we had Uncle Johnny come up and not Mary or whatever. And so to me, those are just some of the little personal touches that I try to provide. And again, I just, like you were saying about the one thing that, and I have to bring this up, is now with all of these phones and iPads, and I don't even know if I have to dive into this, but I'll say it. 2014 was the first time that I actually said, before we started the ceremony, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sal Fiore, and I have to say this. Technology has brought us pretty far these days. And on behalf of the bride and groom, I'm going to ask today, if you're going to take pictures, would you please remain in your seats? Now, why do I say that? Because it's really gotten a little crazy sometimes.
Yeah.
And like, I never used to bring it up with couples.
Yeah.
And I never used to bring it up like when we would meet, but now I have to. Why? Because it's happened to me firsthand, where I had a ceremony. I'm marrying an executive chef at a venue, and I turned the ceremony over for their personal vows. So I moved next to the best man. So the focus is on just the bride and groom.
Right.
I have the photographer, a personal friend of mine, trying to get my attention. So finally I see him. He points to the trellis, right where the couple's exchanging vows, and there's Uncle Billy videoing them. So I have to ask him to leave. And again, it's one of those things from that point on. It's I don't know if I really should be touching upon it, but it's just something that I just bring up because I want to make it a personal event for the couple, and they make the choice on whether they want me to say anything. I usually don't say it myself.
No, that's very relevant. And here's the reason why. More couples, I think, are becoming educated on the importance of unplugged ceremonies and just turning off the phones, let alone taking pictures with them and leaving it up to the professional photographer to capture those moments. That's happening more and more, I'm finding, with many couples. And I think it's a good idea for that. Because
actually yesterday, Jim, I just asked the couple, the guests, ladies and gentlemen, if you're to take pictures today, please turn off your flash. Because if you're flashing at the same time as a professional photographer, and now these guys aren't like $39, $40 a day, they're professional. And if you're flashing at the same time, it could mess up some of their pictures.
Right. So here's a question for you that I'm wondering about. How do you approach a couple, and I don't know if this has happened to you before, but how do you approach a couple that's considering having a friend be the officiant at their wedding? And what tips do you offer them?
Well, I've had a lot of times where I've shared ceremonies. Just had that type of thing just happen, Jim, and I've just met with a couple. They wanted a female friend,
Mm-hmm.
and like I told them, I just try to say, you just want to know if that person has had a little experience, like
Yes.
talking in public, because it's not the easiest thing to do. And and I said, your friend may be very good at speaking,
Yes.
but maybe when they get in front of a crowd, it could be a different environment. And I just say, hey, look, I welcome that, because like I've done ceremonies with grandmothers and grandfathers but I try to actually, if I can help them, like maybe do a passage or a certain, like a ceremony within a ceremony, like
Right.
I've done like the tying of the knot and called up a grandmother, and she would read a passage called These Hands,
Yes.
which is very nice. That's it's one of those things where you have to handle it with kid gloves, because you don't want to turn anybody off, because they want to make their event theirs. And I just try to be honest and just say, if this person is used to this type of thing, it can be done. But just please keep in mind that it's not the easiest thing in the world to do this type of thing. And I've had, I've had good experiences. I remember doing one with a Jewish couple where the grandfather and I, at the society room, we just hit it off. And, they did this thing with the ketubah. And I learned about that, and it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
The grandfather contributed a little part to the ceremony, and it's all good. And, all turns out well. Again, you just have to handle it the right way, and just make sure that the couple knows that, you're working with them.
Yes.
Not them.
Yeah, because, and here's the thing, and maybe it's a family member who recently became ordained and they want to do this, and they may be phenomenal. They may do a great job. But I think it's important to talk and educate a couple ahead of time about that, and say, look, I've seen it and heard stories about where that's happened and things have gone extremely well, and then the extreme where it hasn't gone well, because just not having the experience and to know how to do this, and not having the experience with wedding ceremonies.
Yeah.
Maybe a great speaker, as you mentioned, but because they hadn't been through the process, might not know about those cues that are important to mention, like rise, please rise, everybody, or just some of the things that they thought of at the time because they didn't have to beforehand or didn't know beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Well,
very good. Well, thanks so much, Sal. I appreciate it. We hope this has been a great resource for couples. And remember, all of this is put together because your event matters. Until next time, take care, everyone. Sal, thanks so much. Before we go, let's just let couples know how they can get in touch with you. What's the best way they can do that?
Okay. Well, have my website, which is called weddingsbysal.com, and it's right out there, or email, phone. But weddingsbysal.com is probably the best way to do it. I'm on the Wedding Wire as well. Got my reviews are posted there, and
there's tons of them too. There's great reviews on there. If you want to read some reviews and hear from couples, go there too as a resource. You won't be disappointed. So if you're a couple that's feeling overwhelmed and stressed out about finding all of your vendors and the right people to work with, get in contact with Sal as an officiant and JP. He will serve you well. He will personalize your wedding, and you'll feel very comfortable with him. Hope this has been a great resource. Until next time, see you later, everyone. Take care.